Okay, welcome to the Chapter 6, Business Ownership and Operations, Section 6.2, Types and Functions of Businesses, presentation lecture. We will be building off of the different types of businesses that we touched upon in Section 6.1 and then take that a little bit further into types and functions. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so key concepts. Things that we are going to cover in this section. Types of businesses, functions of businesses, and how the functions of businesses are interdependent. All right, so with that in mind, let's go ahead and take a look at different types of businesses. So we have types of businesses and we have functions of businesses. This graphic organizer is going to break them up into different areas. When we have types of businesses, we have producers, processors, manufacturers, intermediaries and wholesalers, retailers, and service businesses. Don't get those confused with different functions of business, which is production and procurement, marketing, management, finance, and accounting. So the functions are what each one of those different types of businesses has to do in terms of processes to be successful and conduct business. All right. So a producer is a business that gathers raw goods. So a producer may be found in industries such as agricultural, mining, fishing, or even forestry. Those different businesses would be gathering of raw materials, thus making them a producer. Not to be confused with a processor. A processor is a business that changes raw materials into more finished products. So an example of a processor might be turn crude oil into gasoline. The oil refinery would be a processor. Now, manufacturers are a business that makes finished products out of processed goods. So you can kind of see how this chain is going. Cars, CDs, and computers are examples of goods that are made by a manufacturer. Again, a business that makes finished products out of already processed goods. So moving on, an intermediary and a wholesaler. Let's first start off with intermediaries. These are a business that moves goods from one business to another. Intermediaries are also considered the middle person. Intermediary is going to buy goods, store them, and then resell them to businesses that might need them for their particular good or service that they are producing. A wholesaler, slightly different, a business that moves goods from one business to another, also very similar to an intermediary, but a wholesaler is slightly different because a wholesaler of clothing, let's say for example, like Sam's Club and Appleton is a wholesaler. So a wholesaler of clothing may buy thousands of jackets from several different manufacturers, divide them into large quantities and then smaller ones, and then sell them to different retailers. So wholesaler to retailer to customer. So what that means is the next step, or another type of business, is a retailer. A retailer is a business that purchases goods from the wholesaler and then sells them to consumers, the final buyers of the goods. Here's the situation though. As it goes from different business to different business before it becomes available to the consumer, there is a markup because every stage of the business, of the process, in order to get the product to the consumer, each different station or each different step in the process has to make a profit. Therefore, there will always be a markup. A record store, for an example, is an example of a retailer. Now, retail businesses are in the midst of a significant change, especially with the evolution of the internet, e-commerce, and online purchasing. The retailer, consumer goes out to a particular retail store, say Kohl's, Walmart, something of that nature, may not be able or may not do so as much as has in the past because of the option of online purchasing. All right, so retailers and service businesses. Let's take a look at the difference and similarities between these. Service businesses perform tasks rather than provide goods. An example of a service business, a plumber might be an example, an electrician. Service businesses, tree trimmer service, going to the auto mechanic to have your car repaired, all examples of service businesses. Service businesses employ about 3/4 of the workforce and are rapidly increasing in numbers. So you can tell by this trend that we are rapidly moving from more of a manufacturing type of a nation to a service nation. So it's just going to be a different in the type of businesses that are performed for consumers. All right, so the different functions. Let's get back into this. There are 5 main functions. There's production and procurement, marketing, management, finance, and accounting. Every business, no matter what type of business, is going to have to address these 5 main functions in order to operate and be successful. So let's break these down in a little bit more detail and see what happens in each one of these functions. All right, first, production and procurement. Production is the process of creating, expanding, manufacturing, or improving goods or services. Now, production and procurement very closely related in business and also considered to be one of the functions itself by combining these 2 different concepts. Procurement, the buying and reselling of goods and services that have already been produced. So, with this in mind, let's take a look at the next function. The next function is marketing. This is trying to get consumers to buy the product. This is the process of planning, pricing, promoting, selling, and distributing ideas, goods, and services. Marketing is different tactics that are used, such as advertising, sales promotion, publicity, and public relations, in order to persuade consumers to purchase products from that particular organization. Management, very important function of business, the process of achieving company goals by planning, organizing, directing, controlling, and evaluating the effective use of resources. This is going to revolve around the 4 functions of management, which we may touch upon in here, but for sure will be touched upon in, I shouldn't say that. We've already touched upon the 4 functions of management. We've already hit upon that. Be more detailed in terms of the addressing and exposure to these different functions in small business development, if any of you are looking to go on to that. So, management, very important, and a function of business that is vitally necessary for business success. Now, let's take a look at a real world. For example, to advertise or not. We see advertisements all the time. We are flooded and we are saturated with advertisements of different goods and services. Advertising is used to influence consumers to buy one product, service, or another. So a lot of money is spent in this aspect of marketing and in this aspect of trying to persuade consumers to purchase products from one particular organization. Finance. All right, this is the numbers end of things. Finance is the business or art of money management. So being able to require, analyze financial statements to make future decisions. So based off of our current fiscal profile, so to speak, and where we are financially as an organization is going to drive decisions on how we are going to proceed in the future. Money drives everything. Finance is very, very important when it comes to a function of business. Now, accounting, which is also part of finance, broken down into a more specific concept, is maintaining and checking records, handling bills, and preparing financial reports for a business. This is going to require extreme attention to detail and accuracy. Remember, it is to be socially responsible. An organization has to provide accurate financial reports and accurately report on the financial data, money in, money out, not fabricate, not exaggerate in any way. Okay, so being socially responsible is doing the accounting properly and correctly reporting on financial status. Now, how the functions of the business are interdependent. This is what you need to really understand when it comes to these different functions of business. The functional areas of business depend upon each other. They do function within each other. There is overlap there, and without one, you cannot have the other, and that is why these 5 are the most important. Now, sometimes the functional areas of business do conflict with each other, but this is where the management aspect is going to come in order to resolve these conflicts, in order for the processes to move forward and the business to be successful. Now, let's take a look at this graphic organizer, an example of how functional areas depend upon each other. For example, a furniture maker's sales are decreasing. That is our situation. The accounting and finance department noticed the decreasing sales. So if that's where the decreasing sales finally or first show up, how do we address it? If the furniture is too highly priced, that means a more efficient procedures will have to be implemented. Possibly a new marketing plan needs to be created, different ways to influence consumers to purchase the good. And the accounting and finance department will then monitor the effects of the new marketing efforts to see if the sales can recover. So that's how they depend upon each other. One drives the other. An example of how the functional areas could conflict with each other. Okay, so management wants to increase sales by 20% within the next 3 years. In order to do that, the production department suggests improving quality. The marketing department requests more funds for projects. Accounting says there is not enough money for either plan. The final plan involves ideas from all functions of business. So no matter what change, no matter what increase, no matter what new process, new procedure, new direction you want to take your business, it's going to take and consume resources. Financial status is a form of a resource. So if the accounting department says that there's not enough of that resource to move forward, now you have a conflict. How are we going to resolve these conflicts? This is an example of where the controlling aspect of the four functions of management is going to come into play in order to resolve this conflict. As well as leadership. Leadership is also going to be another aspect of the four functions of management that is going to play into this particular scenario. And that concludes the presentation lecture on section 6.2, types and functions of business. Please revisit the slides if need be in order to complete the notes and then submit in classroom when completed. And I will see you next time we meet in class.